The story kicks off with Kang Hoo-yong, a financial planner returning to South Korea after a decade spent in the USA. Excited to reconnect with his roots, he heads to a restaurant where fate takes an intriguing twist. There, he bumps into his first love, Lee Hongju, who hilariously mistakes him for her blind date. In a mix up of emotions and memories, Hongju doesn't recognize Hu Yong at first. When Hu Yong's actual date, Omi Su, arrives, Hongju leaves to chase her own blind date. Mi Su, sensing Hu Yong's gaze lingering on Hongju, learns they went to high school together. Meanwhile, Hu Yong is left pondering why Hongju can't seem to place him. As the night unfolds, both Hu Yong and Hongju wrap up their dates. While driving home, Hu Yong receives a call from his client, Joseph, who questions why he ended things with Mi Su so abruptly. Joseph reminds Hu Yong to settle his affairs in South Korea before heading back to the States, triggering memories of Hongju. Stuck in traffic, Hu Yong spots Hongju waiting at a bus stop, bringing back a flood of high school memories. In a poignant flashback, we see a young Hongju shyly giving him a love letter, urging him to write back. Back to the present, Hu Yong calls out to her, but she slips away. He trails her to a tteokbokki stall, trying to strike up a conversation, only to feel the awkward tension as she purposely avoids him. They exchange small talk, and Hu Yong wonders if she missed him while he was gone. This question surprises Hongju, causing her to accidentally spill soup on his coat. Hongju hurriedly pays for the snacks, leaving Hu Yong with an embarrassing 500 won in change. To add to his misfortune, he discovers his car is being towed for illegal parking. That night, Hongju reflects on their brief interaction, questioning why she hasn't reached out to him yet. We flash back to high school where we witness their playful banter and budding feelings, an adorable mix of first crushes and mischief. Fast forward to the present, Hongju shares her thoughts about Hu Yong with her friend Hyeji, who, after a glow up, hints at wanting a chance with him. Meanwhile, Hu Yong returns to work, where his uncle introduces him to the staff at Rock Acid. Yet, he's still preoccupied with thoughts of Hongju. A call from Hyeji invites Hu Yong out for drinks with old friends. At the reunion, Hyeji is all dressed up, and there's palpable tension as everyone awaits Hongju's arrival. As the night goes on, Hongju is drawn into an unexpected after-party with her boss, where she meets Bang Joon-ho, the author of her favorite romance novel from her youth. The drinks flow, and when Hongju finally arrives at the restaurant, she's tipsy and ready to share stories, much to Hu Yong's amusement. After Hyeji passes out, Sang-pil asks Hu Yong to drop Hongju home. On their walk, they reminisce about their high school days, with Hongju teasing Hu Yong about his past self being mechanical and emotionless. They decide to try and be friends as adults, leading to an endearing moment. As they reach her house, Hongju gifts Hu Yong her favorite ramen bowl and frozen snack, joking about it thawing. Hu Yong's remark about it already starting to thaw leaves us hanging, teasing what's to come in their renewed relationship. Opens with Hongju waking up, a bit groggy from her drunken adventures the night before. As memories flood back, she recalls feeling upset at Director Kim's party, particularly about the unexpected appearance of her first love, Bang Joon-ho. Embarrassed by her antics, she's soon visited by her best friend Hyeji, who's armed with food and curiosity about what transpired. Meanwhile, Hu Yong is having breakfast with his uncle, CEO Beck, who brings up Hu Yong's first love. Hu Yong surprises him by refusing to invite Hongju over, leaving his uncle puzzled. Hyeji is fuming over Joon-ho's sudden return to South Korea after abandoning Hongju. She can't believe he has the audacity to show his face again. In a bid to lift their spirits, the two friends decide to indulge in pastries while discussing their past crushes. Hongju asks if Hyeji has managed to talk to Hu Yong, to which Hyeji admires his looks, but Hongju rolls her eyes in disagreement. We flash back to their high school days where young Hyeji was heartbroken over Hu Yong not responding to the love letters she wrote with Hongju's help. In a memorable moment, Hu Yong discovers a public love confession written by HJ on the classroom chalkboard, leading to teasing from his classmates. Back in the present, Hongju complains about Hu Yong's rudeness for never responding to Hyeji's letters. Hyeji insists it's fate that Hu Yong is back in their lives, and she's excited about the possibility of reconnecting. In a bold move, Hu Yong convinces CEO Bayek to call Hongju and ask her to entertain him the next day, assuming she'll enjoy spending time with Hyeji. Hongju, expecting to care for a child, is shocked to find Hu Yong waiting for her when she arrives. With Hyeji unresponsive, Hongju agrees to take Hu Yong to the amusement park. At the park, Hongju notices how much happier Hu Yong seems compared to their high school days. They share laughs and excitement, creating new memories together. Meanwhile, Hyeji, back at home, has her own adventure interrupted by a trek with her dad and his friends. CEO Baek texts Hu Yong, asking if he's enjoying his day with Hyeji, which he ignores, opting instead to eat spicy ramen with Hongju. After a fierce spice challenge, Hongju emerges victorious, and she dares Hu Yong to wear traditional hanboks for a fun photo shoot. As they wrap up their day, rain starts pouring, forcing them to take refuge in the car. While reminiscing about their time together, Hongju accidentally rolls down the window, getting drenched and creating an intimate moment between them. As Huyong leans in, Hongju pulls back, asking him to drive her home. On the drive back, tension builds as they exchange glances. But when they arrive, Hongju awkwardly borrows an umbrella, leaving Hu Yong with a request to hang out for fried chicken soon. She returns home, pondering the shift in their dynamic. Flashbacks reveal the history of their relationship, highlighting how Hongju used to scold Hu Yong for ignoring Hyeji's letters. We see Hu Yong in the library, quietly assisting Hongju when she falls asleep, further solidifying their bond. As the night progresses, Hu Yong is determined to hang out with Hongju more. The next day at work, she is called into her boss's office, only to find out she'll be working with none other than Junho on a new animation project. The revelation hits her hard, reminding her of the painful past when he left her without a word. Later, Junho catches up with Hongju at a nearby cafe, claiming he returned for her after abruptly leaving to work on his new novel. Hongju, still hurt, firmly states they're no longer together, despite Junho's insistence that they haven't officially broken up. Just then, Hu Yong enters the cafe, spotting Hongju with Junho. CEO Beck informs him of Junho's past, with Hongju raising the stakes. As tensions rise, Junho tries to grab Hongju's hand, but she pulls away, leading to a surprising intervention from Hu Yong. He pretends to be Hongju's boyfriend, allowing her to slip away with him, leaving Junho stunned. A touching flashback of a younger Hu Yong comforting Hongju with ramen, showcasing their deep-rooted connection and setting the stage for what's to come. Hongju and Hu Yong leaving the cafe hand in hand as they pretend to be in a relationship to dodge Junho's attention. Junho watches them leave, confused, while Hongju thanks Hu Yong for his support and urges him to act oblivious about her past with Junho. Back at work, CEO Bei assigns Hongju to create a presentation for the upcoming project with Junho. Despite her initial resistance, CEO Bei pushes her to separate her personal feelings from her professional responsibilities. It's a pivotal moment for Hongju as she grapples with the task ahead. Meanwhile, Hu Yong is shocked to discover that the author he admired in high school is none other than Hongju's ex, Bang Junho. On the drive home, Junho discusses his career with his agent, who warns him about playing with Hongju's emotions again. Junho is confident that Hongju will come around, believing that his stories will always draw her back. That evening, Hongju starts reading Junho's new novel, reflecting on their complex past, while Hu Yong can't help but chuckle at his own situation, remembering their high school days. In a flashback, we see a younger Hu Yong run into Hongju, who is skipping school. While he's meant to be attending a math Olympiad, he chooses to follow her instead. As they reach the military base where Junho is stationed, Hongju reveals her intention to confess her feelings to him. Present day Hu Yong feels embarrassed at the memory. Back at Rock Asset, CEO Beck is frustrated to learn that Hu Yong's infatuation with Hongju is keeping him in South Korea. He urges Hu Yong to return to the US immediately, but Hu Yong stands his ground. Meanwhile, Hyeji speaks with Mr. Son, a colleague, asking him to ask Hongju out on a date again. Just as he's about to confess his feelings, they're interrupted by the school bell. Later, CEO Beck confronts Hu Yong about being promoted, and is irritated to see Hongju's boss parked in his spot. Determined to confront his feelings, Hu Yong heads out for a walk and runs into Hongju, who invites him for fried chicken. However, Hyeji unexpectedly joins them, leading to some tension as Hu Yong almost reveals his secret about saving Hongju from Junho. When he jokingly calls Hongju clueless, she snaps at him, leaving him to enjoy the chicken with Hyeji instead. As Hyeji drinks alone, she grapples with her feelings about Hu Yong's affection for Hongju. She reflects on the countless coincidences that have brought them together, feeling both protective of her friend and heartbroken. Later, Hongju visits Sangpil's restaurant, where he expresses his concerns about her working with Junho. Hu Yong, meanwhile, is still wrestling with his reasons for staying in South Korea. That night, as Hongju returns home, she finds her old box of animations based on Junho's novels, reigniting her determination. The next day, she surprises CEO Bei by agreeing to work on the anniversary animation project with Junho, despite her previous refusals. As Hu Yong prepares to leave for the US, he wrestles with his feelings and decides not to say goodbye to Hongju. Meanwhile, Hyeji avoids texting her about her time with Hu Yong, caught in a web of confusion. At school, Hyeji seeks advice from Mr. Son about her feelings for Hu Yong. He encourages her to let her first love find happiness with Hongju, making her laugh and promising to set him up on a better date next time. As Hu Yong heads to the airport, flashbacks show Hongju's past heartbreaks, especially when she couldn't deliver her love letter to Junho. Hu Yong comforts her with ramen, but she's determined to confess her feelings. In a critical moment, just as Hu Yong is about to leave, he receives a shocking call from Hye Ji, informing him that Hongju has been in a car accident. Without hesitation, he rushes to the hospital, anxious for her well being. At the hospital, Hu Yong finds Hongju with an injured arm. When she downplays the accident and apologizes for the trouble she's caused, Hu Yong becomes visibly upset. He pulls her hand to his chest, expressing how worried he truly was for her. Just as the atmosphere grows romantic, the doctor arrives, interrupting their moment to schedule an MRI for Hongju. Though hesitant, she agrees and wonders if Hu Yong might be flirting with her. Meanwhile, Hyeji rushes to meet her father, Mr. Kim, the school's vice principal, asking for a half day off to see Hongju. Mr. Kim insists that Mr. Son drive her to the hospital despite her protests. Outside, Mr. Son sweetly helps Hyeji by changing her shoes to running shoes, which touches her. Back at the hospital, CEO Beck arrives after being informed about Hu Yong's luggage. He runs into Hyeji, who reassures him that Hongju is okay and about to be discharged. On the elevator ride down, Hongju comments on how lucky Hu Yong is to have a girl like Hyeji interested in him. Just as he's about to confess his feelings, a group of hospital staff joins them, creating an awkward, close proximity between Hu Yong and Hongju. After exiting the elevator, Hongju meets Hyeji, who checks on her condition. CEO Baek chastises Hu Yong for missing his flight back to the US. Outside, Hyeji tells Hongju she's dating Mr. Son and encourages her to go home with Hu Yong. In the car, Hongju pretends to sleep to avoid conversation but wakes up for a work call. CEO Baek praises Mr. Son for his acting skills as Hyeji's boyfriend, making him smile awkwardly. Meanwhile, Hongju teases Hu Yong for avoiding his mother's calls, bringing up their high school days. A flashback shows younger Hu Yong and Hongju after missing the last bus home. When Hongju tries to help Hu Yong out of a pit he falls into, she ends up in the pit too. This moment is filled with laughter and sweet clumsiness, highlighting their budding friendship. Present day Hongju laughs at the memory and expresses how she's repressed thoughts of Junho. Hu Yong is disappointed she doesn't remember their moments together. When they arrive at Hu Yong's uncle's house, he helps her inside and heads out for medicine and food. At Sangpil's restaurant, Hyeji, Mr. Son, and CEO Beck discuss the situation. Hyeji is frustrated with Sangpil for knowing about Hu Yong's feelings and not saying anything. Meanwhile, Hu Yong reflects on Hongju's earlier comment about their lack of closeness. That night, Hongju dreams of kissing Hu Yong. Feeling a mix of excitement and confusion, she attempts to climb the stairs at CEO Beck's house without crutches, only to have Hu Yong carry her upstairs effortlessly. After he prepares porridge for her, she thanks him, hinting at the significance of his support. When Hongju casually mentions that they were never very close in high school, Hu Yong feels offended and leaves, prompting Hongju to question if she pushed too far. At home, Hu Yong contemplates her words and his feelings for her. Hu Yong receives a call from his friend Joseph, but he declines to return to Korea, holding on to Hongju's business card that he found. Meanwhile, Junho reads a fan letter from Hongju and reflects on their past together, remembering how he used to thank her for her support. In a flashback from 4 years ago, we see Junho during an interview, looking at Hongju as he talks about his gratitude for a constant support system, hinting at her importance in his life. Back in the present, Junho's publicist expresses concern that Hongju might not want to collaborate on the upcoming project. Junho admits he didn't share the real reason for his departure 3 years ago, feeling relieved when Minwoo tells him Hongju has accepted the project. Hu Yong, reflecting on Hongju's comments about their past, recalls a secret spilling moment they shared. He smiles, but then Hongju wakes up to texts from Hyeji and Sangpil, inviting Hu Yong to join their group chat. Hu Yong cooks breakfast for Hongju, catering to her tastes, which makes her happy. He jokingly reminds her of her promise to give him 5% of her salary from her future career in animation. They share laughter and reminisce about their dreams. Just as they're enjoying their moment, Junho arrives at Hongju's house, angry to see her with Hu Yong. He scolds her for not taking the project seriously, but Hongju stands her ground, challenging him to leave her alone and asserting her growth since their breakup. Hu Yong comforting Hongju, expressing his happiness about her moving on. As he leans in for a kiss, we flash back to Hongju's fluttering heart when Hu Yong rested on her shoulder during their childhood. One day, while waiting at the bus stop after school, Hu Yong receives a text from his mother telling him they're leaving for the USA. Realizing he has to leave soon, Hu Yong boards the bus before Hongju can cross the street to meet him. Fast forward to the present, where Hu Yong kisses Hongju, confessing that he's liked her since high school. Embarrassed, Hongju asks him to go home and escapes to Sangpil's restaurant to distract herself from his confession. Meanwhile, CEO Beck and CEO Bei engage in a heated argument about parking outside, revealing their competitive nature over the building Baek recently purchased. CEO Bei attempts to rattle Baek by playing on their past and his rejection of her feelings. Back at Sangpil's restaurant, Hongju peels onions, still preoccupied with Hu Yong's words. Hu Yong, meanwhile, smiles at the memory of their interaction, but is reminded by CEO Beck of his impending departure to the USA. After failing to reach his mother, Hu Yong texts Sangpil and learns that Hongju is at the restaurant. He rushes over, but Hongju leaves upon hearing he's coming, finding herself at a bus stop, reminiscing about their past. That night, Junho, feeling drunk and nostalgic, sends texts to Hongju expressing how much he misses her. However, she's too wrapped up in her own thoughts about Hu Yong to notice. The next morning, Sang Pil shows up at Hongju's house, insisting she join him, Hu Yong, and CEO Beck for a trip. Despite her reservations about the awkwardness with Hu Yong, Sang Pil convinces her to go. As they drive, Hu Yong finally sits beside Hongju, but she tries to ignore his advances. After Hu Yong takes over driving, she finds herself stuck in the passenger seat while Sang Pil and CEO Baek nap in the back. Upon arriving at their destination, Sang Pil and CEO Baek go fishing, while Hongju and Hu Yong set up their rental for the night. They share a romantic moment, but overwhelmed, Hongju decides to leave. Later, while sitting with CEO Baek, Hongju receives a text from CEO Bai about Junho wanting to work with her on an animation project at his home. Upset by the sudden reminder of Junho, she decides to take a walk along the beach. As high tide approaches, Hu Yong rushes to find her, convincing her to return. Instead, she suggests they fish for unique sea creatures, leading to a series of sweet, bonding moments. Just as they're about to kiss, Hongju hesitates, prompting playful teasing from Hu Yong. Meanwhile, Hyeji and Mr. Son drive to meet her friends, but tension simmers between them as she learns about a blind date set up by her father for Mr. Son. Heartbroken, Hyeji confesses her feelings for him to Hongju later, which inspires Hongju to confront her own feelings for Hu Yong. After a night of drinks and laughter, Hongju dreams of her mother, aunt, and Junho walking away from her, with Hu Yong asking if she would let him leave too. The next morning, Hongju wakes up alone in the rental house, panicking when she can't reach her friends. Just then, Hu Yong returns with coffee and breakfast, brightening her mood. As they share breakfast, Hongju admits she doesn't want him to leave for the USA. Hu Yong smiles, reassuring her that he has no intention of going back, and they share a kiss. In an emotional epilogue, we see Junho boarding his flight 3 years ago, tearfully vowing to return after finding success, hoping that Hongju will wait for him, with a sweet moment between Hu Yong and Hongju as they share a passionate kiss, confessing their feelings for each other. Hu Yong takes her out on a date, encouraging her to relax and enjoy herself, and Hongju eventually warms up to the moment. That night, they return to Seoul, where CEO Baek tries to reach Hu Yong, but he ignores his calls. Outside his house, Hu Yong suggests going for dinner with Hongju, but is compelled by CEO Baek to enter the house instead. Inside, CEO Baek interrogates Hu Yong about his resignation from his job in the USA, revealing that his mother has asked him to look into it. Hu Yong stands firm, stating he won't return because he wants to be with Hongju, defying his uncle's wishes. Later, Hu Yong receives a call from his friend Joseph, who is puzzled by Hu Yong's resignation. Hu Yong jokes that it's all due to serendipity. He tries to reach out to Hongju, but she declines, claiming she's already in bed. They share a playful phone conversation before ending the night. The next day, Hu Yong hopes to have breakfast with Hongju, only to discover she's out on a date with Hyeji. Hyeji has gotten her hair permed for a hiking trip with Mr. Son, and Hongju, influenced by her friend, decides to get her hair done too. That evening, the friends gather at Sangpil's restaurant. As Sangpil nearly spills the beans about Hongju's contract with Junho, Hongju playfully scolds him. Meanwhile, Hu Yong waits anxiously for Hongju to reach out, only to find her returning home with a drunken CEO, Baek, who is upset about his ex. Hongju accidentally speaks to CEO Bai, her boss, while on the phone with CEO Baek, which leads to some comical confusion. After dropping CEO Baek off, Hu Yong rushes back to Hongju, complimenting her new hairstyle and asking her out on an official date the next day. On the morning of their date, Hongju gets ready alongside Hyeji, who is also preparing for a trek with Mr. Son. Mr. Kim informs Hyeji that Mr. Son is unwell and can't join them. Hyeji, eager to talk about her feelings for him, is frustrated that her father isn't taking her seriously. Feeling left out, Hyeji interrupts Hongju and Hu Yong's date at a cafe. Hu Yong encourages Hyeji to reach out to Mr. Son, who is just waking up and contemplating how to respond to her text. When Mr. Son's mother visits, she pressures him about finding a partner, even noticing Hyeji and suggesting she's a suitable match. This embarrasses Mr. Son, who lashes out at his mother, leaving Hyeji confused and hurt. Meanwhile, Junho meets with Mr. Kim and is shocked to learn that Hu Yong was once his student. They discuss Junho's breakup with Hongju, with Mr. Kim warning him to leave her alone after his past mistakes. Back with Hu Yong and Hongju, they steal glances and flirt as he drives her to an art gallery. Their chemistry is palpable, and Hu Yong expresses how much he likes her, saying his heart flutters when she calls him by name. However, their date is cut short when CEO Baek interrupts, summoning Hu Yong home for an emergency. Later at home, Hongju finds her box of memories from high school, reminiscing about her essay on ambition, where she mentioned Hu Yong's name. Meanwhile, Hu Yong has a tense conversation with his mother, Do Seon, who insists he return to the USA, but he refuses. The next day, Hongju waits at the bus stop, worried about Hu Yong, while Mr. Son tries to apologize to Hyeji but miscommunicates his feelings, leaving her even more upset. At Rock Acid, Seo Baek is anxious about his sister's presence. Do Seon reveals she plans to live in South Korea now that Hu Yong has resigned. Meanwhile, Hongju arrives at Junho's house where he struggles to open up about his anxiety and panic attacks. In a dramatic turn, Junho collapses due to an anxiety attack just as Hongju is about to leave. We flash back 10 years to when Hu Yong missed his chance to cross paths with Hongju at the bus stop, foreshadowing their complex history. Observing from her car, Do Seon notices the connection between them, leading to an awkward encounter between Hongju and Do Seon later, with a tense moment as Junho almost faints and Hongju rushes to catch him, trying to check on his well being. He confesses to her that he's been dealing with illness, revealing that his anxiety was the reason for their breakup. Junho opens up about his struggles, saying he couldn't be vulnerable with her back then. Grateful for his honesty, Hongju expresses how she spent years blaming herself for their failed relationship. With this newfound clarity, she feels ready to move on. Meanwhile, Do-seon informs Hoo-young that she plans to stay in South Korea and tries to persuade him to return to the USA with her. Hoo-young stands firm in his decision to stay, much to CEO Bayek's dismay. At her workplace, Hongju tells CEO Bae that she won't be working on the project with Junho anymore due to personal reasons. CEO Bae checks in on her but respects her decision. Later, while moping by a convenience store, Hongju gets frustrated with some high schoolers and is pleasantly surprised when Hoo-young shows up. They share a warm hug, followed by a fun outing at an arcade where they bond over games and karaoke. Hongju finds herself surprised by how sexy she thinks Hoo-young's singing voice is. On their walk home, Hoo-young reveals that he quit his job, which worries Hongju. He reassures her to trust his decision, and she agrees. Later, Hongju talks to Hyeji about her recent heartbreak, revealing she deleted all the files related to Junho. Hyeji shares her own feelings of rejection from Mr. Son, leading to a moment of mutual support. The next morning, Hu Yong discovers Hongju's favorite novels by the trash and finds it puzzling. When Hongju leaves for work, she notices the books are gone. Hu Yong offers to walk her to the bus stop, but they are interrupted by his mother, Do Seon, who requests privacy. Do Seon confronts CEO Beck about renovations done without her consent, adding to the family tension. She also texts Hongju to be cautious of her now that she's living with them. At work, CEO Bai notices Hongju's low mood and tries to distract her. That night, she attempts to avoid Doseon as much as possible. Hu Yong meets Hongju outside her house for a romantic conversation, hinting at deeper feelings. The following day, Hu Yong finds himself working as a waiter at Sangpil's restaurant, where he hilariously struggles but shines with math skills at the cash register. Later, Hongju visits a Teokbokki place from her childhood and reminisces. Sangpil is left babysitting Hu Yong until Hongju finishes work, and they both reflect on their shared memories. Meanwhile, Hyeji is nearly hit by a football, and Mr. Son heroically steps in to save her, resulting in a nosebleed for him. This leads to a heartfelt moment where he confesses his feelings for Hyeji, and they share their first kiss in the medical room. That night, Doseon finds a drunken Sang-pil at home and heads to check on Hongju, only to find Hu Yong waiting outside. He passionately declares his love for Hongju, upset with his mother for making her cry. As Hongju runs home from work, Hu Yong saves her from a speeding bike, solidifying his protective feelings. With a nostalgic flashback of Hongju and Hyeji visiting the Teokbokki place as kids, stirring up emotions for both friends. With a tender reunion between Hongju and Hu Yang outside, their eyes reflecting a depth of emotion that has only intensified over time. Their heartfelt conversation is filled with unspoken words and apologies, highlighting the intricacies of their relationship. As they prepare ramyeon together, this simple act becomes a poignant metaphor for their connection. Through shared stories of their pasts, dreams, and fears, their vulnerability fosters an intimate bond that resonates with viewers. A pivotal moment arises when Hu Yang proposes they move to the United States together. This significant turning point challenges them to confront the sacrifices required for a shared future. Hongju's hesitation reflects her deep ties to Korea, but her ultimate decision to join Hu Yang is a powerful testament to their love and her willingness to embrace the unknown. Hu Young's backstory, particularly the reasons behind his mother's move to the US, adds depth to his character and illuminates the challenges he has faced. Hongju grapples with the fear of leaving behind everything familiar, while Hu Young wrestles with the guilt of possibly disappointing his family. Their shared vulnerability forges a powerful connection that resonates deeply with the audience. The finale concludes with a touching montage of the couple's cherished memories set against the backdrop of their new life in the US. knowing that Hongju and Hu Yang have found their happily ever after.